attracted you towards the silver method? Because you already had such a deep understanding of how the mind works.
It was destined. When my friend, we went over to Fort Worth to hear him. It was a free lecture. And the minute I got in there, he was da-da-da-da-da-da. And he had all his charts and things. And he has such a heavy accent, I couldn't understand him. And everybody was wanting to know more about it. And he was so, well, he was a Leo and a master number, and he's up there and very, very proud. During the break, I nudged him and I said, look, boy, I said, you're talking too fast. Can't understand you. He said, thank you. And then he talked slow. Because then after that I thought, now this guy would listen to me, because if he had, even as a Leo and a master number, he would listen to my suggestion and talk slow. And then even during the break, he said, am I talking slow enough? Yes, thank you. Well, I was impressed with him. I asked him home to dinner. And when he came back, he said he had to open the Dallas area and he needed somebody to help him. And the metaphysical butterfly volunteered me. Oh, she's at home. She doesn't have any work. She can help. I'll help. And there were 2 airline stewardesses, and she was secretary to the attorney. Okay, so now we're going to open the areas. And this is so foreign to me. This is so foreign to me. All of it. So I said, okay, we couldn't put ads in the paper at that time because it's mind control meant that they were going to influence people, and we could not put ads in the paper. And he should have changed it by the, but he was so down. I wanted to be mind control so they can control their mind, not we control their mind. But that's the way we left it. So my friend had friends in the churches and so forth. So now we're going to have an introductory lecture. Well, at that time, I was quite, what do you want to call, popular or famous. I knew a lot of people. And I knew one young man that had, he was very, very, very wealthy. He had a building with a big dormitory. And I called him and I said, can we have this room free? Everything was free when I called him. So Jose's going to have this lecture there. All right, we go there, and there are about 150 people there from the different churches. Just they were conned in saying, come and learn to use more of your mind. So now we're going to register people. And I look at Jose, and there's 120 or 30 people. And I said, how many people do you want for your first program? He said, what do you mean? And I said, how many people do you want for your first program? And he said, well, let's have 83, you know. I said, you want 83? Okay, we'll have 83. And he walks off, and you wonder what the hell's going on. All right, now, the next night, he's going to have his class. And they're registering, and they're calling me for registrations and so forth. And all of a sudden, there's 82 in the class, and Jose's sitting there, and we'll get started. And I said, no, there's one more that has to come. I did not know any better. I decided that he wanted 83. He's got to have 83. And this man, I'm sorry, and he walked in the door, and there were 83. And Jose looked. Well, see, I had nothing to do with this. It was all something, guidance was helping him all the time. And when I got to where he says, you have to open the Chicago area, I'm not going to open the Chicago. I don't want to fly. I don't like to fly. At that time, I was afraid of flying. That was before I had mind control, you know. And so I said, no, get somebody else. And Jose would always say, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. And that meant to me, I already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to influence you, you know. That's a good one to use. We'll talk about it. So, this is the way we worked. And then I said, that day, you said, how can you get someone to help you? Just sit in your chair. And I say, somebody, someplace has got to help me. Hey, somebody, someplace has got to help me. Come on, help me. Phone rings. Yeah, Mrs. Yes. Well, I'm Alice so-and-so, and I live in Chicago, and I just read an article about you in one of the magazines. How can I get Jose up here? And I said, well, I'm PR for him, and I'm supposed to come up and open the area, get a suitable meeting place and put ads in the paper and so forth. You don't have to do a thing. I'll do it all for you. I represent a shoe manufacturing company. I'll get the auditorium free, and what else do you want? I mean, all over the phone in 5 minutes, everything was done. I didn't do it. Guides were doing it. Guides were helping me. She read my article I wrote for magazines. And she read this article, and all I'm talking about is Jose. I said, this is so fabulous. This is such a great, great program. And I had the automobile accident, and I was saying, I mean, it was just amazing what happened. And she was impressed and wanted it. And so she did everything.
And it happened again in Detroit, right?
Oh, yes, oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
The next time I did go to Chicago because my husband said, well, you had mind control. How long? Now, why don't you practice it? You know? But I was so busy in other areas. And yes, then I learned to fly. I mean, I was comfortable flying. And then the next time, that was directly after Chicago, he would come and he would always say, they tell me that I must now go to Chicago. I mean, to Detroit. And that's very night. He tells me, now I don't want to go to Detroit. And I'm saying, they're riding in the street, they have curfew. You don't want to go to it. They tell me. And so I thought.
In your book, you talk about how one of the Silva method techniques saved your life in an accident. Could you tell us more about that?
Okay, sure. It was New Year's Eve, and it was in Dallas. And one of my friends had a New Year's Eve party. And I don't really care for drinking, and neither did my husband. So there was some punch bowl there and everything. So after we left that night, I'd had, I think, Silva Method program, I think 3 months earlier. And in the program, Jose was saying, you can stop the bleeding, or if you have a physical challenge, remember, when it hurts, there's pulsations. And the more you think about it, the more it hurts. But when you talk about healing, then it feels like warm waves of water. And then you give the body or the place an opportunity to heal. Well, when I heard that, and especially from my background of going into almost traumatic panic anytime something happened to me, I thought, well, I doubt that. I doubt that. Dismissed it. But now, here is New Year's Eve. We're at this party on the way home, and it had turned slick, and it was sleety, and we were crossing a bridge. And Dallas, incidentally, from Irving is 27 miles, from my door to her door. We're on this bridge, and all of a sudden, there's a Corvette come up and just rammed into us. And I remember his coming up the hood of the car and seeing it. Well, the next thing I knew, I was on the floorboard, and I was drowning in my blood. And I was trying as fast, it was just gushing, because this nose here is, it's not plastic surgery, but it's in good running condition, and it was, had to be taken care of. But anyway, here I'm drowning in my blood, and I'm pushing a panic button, and all of a sudden it seemed like I heard Jose. Perhaps it was a thought prompt, whatever. But I said, stop the bleeding. Stop the bleeding. And when I heard that, I yelled, stop the bleeding. And all of a sudden, it seemed to dry up, and I was able. Of course, I couldn't breathe through my nose. And all of a sudden, I was able to swallow, and there was no more blood. When we got to the emergency room, the two people that were there, the doctors that looked at me, the first thing they said when they saw me was, I wonder what she looks like. So that ought to tell you that this nose was absolutely pushed in. And look at her bleeding has stopped. And so then they made a decision, what else is wrong with her, etc. She needs to have this plastic surgery done and evaluating. And the first thing I said to my husband is, call Jose. Call Jose. That's the first thing I thought of. Did he telepathically communicate? Were my guides? I don't know. But call Jose. It's now 3 o'clock in the morning. Jose is sound asleep with his wife. Pat calls and he picks up the phone. He said, she was in an accident, and what do you do? And Jose said, I will get on it immediately and call me in the morning at 9 o'clock. And that's all. And I'm conscious now, and I'm laying in the bed because also had my back challenge and several other serious things. The next morning, when we talked to Jose, Jose went across New Ava, Laredo. He lived in Laredo. He went over to New Ava, Laredo, and at that point in his research, he had all these Mexican women come up, because I was over there. He rented a hallway in an old dilapidated building, and there was nothing but metal chairs up there. And these women would come up, and Jose had a chalkboard, and he would teach them mind control, how to control yourself, how to control your environment, how to help yourself, help your family. And they were so grateful. All of this was free, and it was his research. So now he gets over there, and these women all come at his beck and call and said, we have an emergency here, and we need your help. They came there at that loft, and they projected. He put me on the screen, and later on he told me this, put me on the screen, and they detected abnormalities like you were taught in Silva. And they came up with the thought that this leg here, he said he was going to have to put it in a cast. And Jose said, don't let him put it in a cast because they'll cut off the circulation because it's going to swell. Don't let him do that. And that's what he told Patty. I'm not going to disrupt your doctor, but she's strong enough to tell him not to put it in a cast. And we're going to help her every way we can. Well, to make a long story short, when he comes in and he says, you need the cast, and I said, there's no way, no way. Well, why? And he argued, and he said, she's not cooperating with us, to my husband. And my husband said, it's her foot, and whatever she says, you listen to her. Yeah, I have to listen to her. And he made a joke out of it. So we finished that, and what happened then was, I then was convinced, and I think I set this up, because in the past, I was afraid anything bled, I'd bleed to death and wouldn't stop bleeding. That was my concept. Now I knew, after this program, you can stop the bleeding. You can, the pain that is once so intense can be taken down, and in waves of warmth, you can have healing. And you can do this in childbirth and in anything. Of course, right now, there's sophisticated methods, and it doesn't need drugs all the time. You are in control. Mind over matter, if there's any way to explain it. So this is what happened. I'm one of these people that are busy in all different in all different areas, and I let my physical body go. I wasn't paying attention to it. I was having challenges, different challenges in the female areas, and I have never really and truly been keen on doctors. They seem to misdiagnose, or they're just practicing on me, and they try to refer to one of the other patients I had this. I'm not that other patient, I'm me. I'm uniquely individual. And this is, I still have it to this day. They only will prescribe what they feel or what they know about. And what do you know? How much is too much when they prescribe pills for you? How many times are you doing too much? So these things, I mean, this is one of my hang-ups. But it was time, and there was something I couldn't control. I'm sitting in this chair right over here, and I have what I call a doctor from that other dimension. I put him, it's his thought form is what it is, because I've created him. And I put him in a robe, and he looks like a doctor. And I said, okay, I need my doctor today. And all he said was, you have let this go on too long. You need to have this taken care of surgically. And I will help you. And that's what he said. When I heard that, I made an appointment to the doctor, one of the local doctors here in Cleburne, and he said, he did an x-ray, and he looked at it, and I came in, he said, you have a mass here that's on top of your bladder, and it has to be removed, but he said, I see a lot of gray areas, and it's maybe cancer. I cannot remove it. We don't have the facilities. You're going to go to this cancer research clinic in Dallas. And so that was his diagnosis, and he released me. And he said, okay, just go over there, but do have it done. So I called this doctor, and his name is Dr. Jacobs. And I thought, okay. I come back home, and I talk to my little doctor, my thought form, I thought it was, and he tells me, he said, okay, I'm going to be here with you all the time, but let's have some humor. He said, let's have some humor. Everybody's so serious. Cancer, you don't have cancer. Let's have some humor. So I get over to this Dr. Jacobs, and I come in, and he's a very stern, I mean, here's a doctor. The doctor, he means the white coat, and Mrs. Hadsell, polite and formal, so forth. And the first thing he does, he has my x-rays on the wall there, and he said, and here is the growth. And I looked at him and I said, is it a boy or a girl? And he looked at me and he said, Mrs. Hadsell, that's a tumor. I said, well, haven't you ever read the National Enquirer? I said, space aliens are coming down, constantly impregnating women. That was supposed to be a joke, but he didn't think it was funny, you know? And I said, then I used to say, joke time, joke time. Then he went, yeah, because this is a pure idiot. I mean, here's a total stranger, 70 years old, gonna have a baby, you know. So anyway, we get into his office, and he said, it will have to be removed, and I'm doing, and he said, it might be cancerous because I see all the gray areas here, and I'm having to have another doctor with me, an anesthetist, and so forth, so it'll take, and this is the early end month, last of April, August, July. It was in the middle of July and August. I'm the key speaker at the convention, and there's no way I'm going to tell Jose I can't make it. So we're sitting in his office, and he says, well, let's see, I think I can get all this done in about 8 to 10 days, and I'll let you know. I said, no, you won't. I said, get on the phone and make it happen now. And he kind of looked at me like a little kid, and he got out his book and he called the doctor. He said, this is Wednesday. Can you help me with surgery Friday? And he got the anesthetist. And Friday was when I was going to have this surgery. Not 9 days later, because I wanted to heal here. So he said, yes, Mrs. Hadsell, this is done. And I said, what else do I need to know? And he said, well, you have to give me permission to give you blood transfusions, because at your age, we have big problems with blood. And they bleed intently, and so I said, no, I'm not going to sign that. I can stop the bleeding. And when I said that, he thought, I'm pure nuts. And he said, well, Mrs., and I said, okay, I said, I'll sign that release, but you don't need it, I'll stop the bleeding. And as I walked out the door, he just shook his head, and I know he ran to his other doctors to say, I have a pure idiot here today. Friday morning, my husband and I, and the clinic over there that takes care of cancer patients, they have a motel there. So we spend the motel, and the night of the motel, and all I did was sit in my chair all night and talk to my doctor. And he says, it's going to be all right, we're going to help you. You're going to have a healing, and you're going to be the speaker in the radio on the 11th. Okay, so now, when they do the surgery, there's no cancer, because I never learned to develop cancer. Oh, when he said, do you have cancer? And I said, no, I never learned to develop it, because Jose says this all the time, and you never learn to develop cancer. And that's been a thought with me. Every time somebody says, she has cancer, or he has cancer, you know what I say? I never learned to develop it. So this is what I tell this doctor. Now I'm completely a nut. Well, to me, now, after the surgery, I open my eyes. My husband is standing here. The anesthetist, and these two doctors are here, and the anesthetist sat there, and he said, we want to know how you stopped the bleeding. You did not bleed. We cannot believe that you could stop this. And I said, what? I said, it's mind over matter. And he said, how do you teach that? And I said, well, let me tell you what happened to me. I take this class, and we can stop bleeding. We can do so many things we're not aware of. He said, that is beautiful, that is beautiful. And I said, yes, and what you're going to do the next time you get an elderly patient and you're looking for them to bleed, all you're going to say to them is, she's not going to bleed. And then you can stop the bleeding. Don't you know how powerful you are? And they all shook their heads and went out. So now, I said, and there were tubes all over me. I mean, it was, and I said, who needs this? So there was a little packet up here, and he said, now anytime you have a hurt, you press it and you self-medicate yourself. Well, I thought, I can medicate myself and be a zombie, or I can get out of here. I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. So the next, and I never used it. See, what happens when you have something, it comes in segments. And you're aware of this, in segments. If you've ever had a toothache, it's pulsation. All right, the body does the same thing when you're cut and it's trying to heal. So let it heal. And so I'm healing, 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 healing. And that's all I thought about, was healing the body. Never used that thing. Next morning he came up, he shook the bag, and he's looking at his monitor, and he calls the nurse in, and he said, did you change her medication? And it's not, nothing happened. And she said, no, doctor, we haven't. And he said, haven't you used that thing? I said, no. I said, I want to get out of here and I want to be comfortable and I want to be in control. And see, and when you're taking drugs, you're never in control. When you're drinking, you're never in control. And I've always got to be in control. So he just shook his head and he said, well, honey, we'll just, and they came in and pulled out all these plugs and things. And the next day I went home.